Welcome back to Values in Action. We're here with Arnold Pinkney and, of course, my co-host Ratanjit Sande. Arnold, what are the action steps that we can take to, one, restore the value system in our community that is deteriorated, and two, restore the credibility of political leadership?
Well, I think first I'll take the latter. We're not going to be able to restore the credibility of the system that is in place now, particularly if we're talking about the political system. We got to tear it apart to start all over, and we have to develop the standards by which we are going to elect people for office. And I'm not talking about ethics committees. To me, values start within your family. And if your family unit is not strong, if parents aren't giving to their children the kind of value system that they need to guide them throughout their life, society is not going to do it for this. I've told you on numerous occasions that to me the public school system failed because of the lack of involvement of parents. We have to hold parents responsible for the actions of their children. The values that we talk about, treating, your fellow students with love and with respect. See, that comes from home. Because if your parents don't love you, you don't love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And so I say that you start in the home. Now, the credibility situation is so bad because for some reason this whole hysteria we have over corruption has made people believe that not only political leaders are corrupt, but everybody in a leadership position, whether it's on Wall Street, whether it's in Washington, D.C., or whether it's on Main Street, if you're doing well because you've done something wrong to somebody,
Right,
and that's
on the backs
wrong.
of others.
You say, so I say that you change that by changing how we define, values and how we define leadership. You see, some people might define values by appearance. Someone might define values about someone who talks and thinks like they do. Obviously, people define values on people whom they think are honest.
Well, the fundamental values, the entire value system, as far as I understand, comes from our understanding that we are all one. Now, if I'm one with you, then obviously I'm going to be kind to you. I'm going to be honest to you. I'm going to be careful to you. But if that portion is missing, then we play the game, what is in it for me?
Well, we don't have that oneness in our community. We have a community that just seems to be very entrenched in itself, unfortunately. And I love our community. I'm sorry to say that that's my opinion of our community.
Well, couldn't that possibly, Stuart, because all the attention is given to the people who do break the rules and breaks the law. There's not enough examples of people in our community who do have values, who are treating people right, and who are providing the standards by which you want people to live. You turn on the 11 o'clock news, the first 10 minutes is all bad.
Yes.
Well,
It's killing.
I think that's
why
a good
they
point.
show.
And that's the influence.
I think the media in our community has a negative influence, is as much a part of the problem. They certainly are not a part of the solution. Now, I know that the Plain Dealer, our daily newspaper, feels that they are a part of the corruption solution, and I applaud them at that. They've, put that under a microscope. But they're not
That's after the effect.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not
Maybe
preventing
they could have
it.
been ahead of the curve, but
Yeah.
if they push the idea of values and culture and doing the right thing and report the good news, maybe corruption could be averted because people want to live by that higher standard that we're establishing.
Well, what you're saying, there has to be balance, and I agree with you. For every one corrupt politician, there are probably 10 politicians that are not corrupt. So why aren't they held up? Why aren't they given up as an example of what a politician or a public official should be about? The same way when I was on the school board, parents had a lot of complaints about teachers and teachers' attitudes towards children. Well, I've always said, if you don't love children, you shouldn't be a teacher. You just should not be a teacher. You have to love children to be a teacher.
Arnold, we've run out of time, but we have plenty to discuss with you. So you got to promise us that you'll be back for another show where we can continue this discussion.
Well, I'd like to. I would enjoy it. I don't know how much of what I said makes sense, but I would
you.
enjoy
Yeah.
that.
And in a moment, we're going to be back with Barbara Marlowe, our community commentator. Welcome back to Values in Action. I'm here once again with Ratanjit Sande, and we have our community commentator, Barbara Marlowe, who's with Dworkin and Bernstein, Ohio Lawyers Give Back. Barbara, what'd you think about this interchange?
I'm the wrong one to ask about politicians, but I will tell you that I talk to a lot of very solid business people in the community, and I say, why don't you run for politics? You'd be a great mayor. And their response is always, oh no, I'm not going to get involved in that. It's a mess. I think we have to take the money out of politics.
You're
because
right.
I think that is where the problem starts. And when you read all of the stories that have happened between money and sexual favors and power, these guys get too inflated, and it's just very disappointing. We need some other people in there that are going to really instill the values and the change. I mean, Stuart, you have you have values. You have
Why
a
don't
show
you
here.
run?
Why don't you run?
Well, to be honest, it probably is. Why don't I run? First of all, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I feel that I'm making a difference. In Project Love, we've trained 50,000 teenagers in 16 years. But if I weren't happy and I wanted to make a difference in the political realm, you're right, the money would bother me. Who do I have to curry favor to in order to get their contribution? It would bother me tremendously.
But it's someone like you, Stuart, or another business person in the community as well, that says, well, I'm making more of a difference now. In the meantime, the corruption and the kind of government we have just continues to perpetuate.
Well,
If
it's
you
not
get
only
some-
there, corruption. Corruption is everywhere because our leaders are really a reflection of our society.
Well, we've got to start somewhere. And if you were to say, and it's not like I'm here trying to advocate for you now to throw your hat in the ring,
Yeah.
but if somebody was to say, you know what, Stuart, you could make a difference to many more people by being in a political position. But again, it all boils down
But I
to
think I think the leaders, the value system has to be planted in the whole, or your city, whole community, so people have a
standard.
Standard. They have a value for somebody who has value.
If we have no standard, we're running blind.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing right now with our politicians. I challenge the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party leader and the Republican Party leader to say, here are the standards that we have for our politicians. Here are the values we want them to have. And if the politicians don't have the values, don't even put them on the ballot. Please do us a favor.
Fundamentally, we have been talking about leaders. There are no leaders. There are only all of us as human beings.
Absolutely.
And we need to begin to lead ourselves through the value system. Then we become the leaders. This a situation of this is a leader because he's got this title, he's got this position, is all erroneous.
But don't you think people have different ideas of what values are?
Well, I think, and then we need to end on this issue, but if you take a look at our website, purpleamerica.us, you will see that in 8 communities across the country, we asked ordinary Americans on the street, what are the values that connect us as Americans? What do we stand for? And it was surprisingly uniform. The problem is we're not living our values. That is the problem of our society. If we can reinforce the values that we all agree upon, we can have a beautiful community. We can have a beautiful country.
Stuart, I want to leave with one question. Are the values that make a man, or the man who creates the value?
Let's continue that discussion. And I want to thank Barbara, Ratanjit. Join us and let's continue that dialogue on Twitter and Facebook at Values Action.
And we will be back next week with more Values in Action.